Hello, Autumn, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So, Autumn, how did the Jehovah's Witnesses come into your life?
My mom was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and she left as a teenager, just because her family kind of got out of it, and then came back when she was dating my dad. Some witnesses came to her door, and she gave my dad the ultimatum. She was like, "You have to marry me, or leave because I can't be married to you or be living with you out of wedlock anymore." So she started studying, and my dad came in and they got baptized when I was 2 and then almost immediately became inactive. They started drinking and smoking and just totally went a different direction. I don't really know why. I think that they were disgruntled with some people in the hall, but they never, even though they were inactive when I was a kid, still never celebrated holidays or anything like that. So it was like until I was 7, we didn't go to the Kingdom Hall. We also didn't do any like holidays or worldly people stuff. So it was very isolating and like weird during that time. And then when I was 7, my mom got pregnant with my sister. And that was a huge surprise to everybody and kind of shook my parents. And they went back to the Kingdom Hall and became witnesses again. And so I pretty much was in it since I was 7.
Okay, so the fact that your parents weren't witnesses and you were still like not celebrating the holidays, and I've heard this story before, which is very confusing for a child.
Yeah, it's really weird because you're having to make this stand that you're already uncomfortable making as a kid, and then to not understand at all why you're doing it. It's
Right.
like I just can't eat the cupcake. I don't know. It's against my religion.
Religion that you're really not part of. Okay,
Yeah, that I don't even go to church on Sundays, but
right, right. Okay, so then your parents got baptized, or your mom got baptized when you were 7, or what happened? What was the transition? You said your sister was born, but what happened after that?
So my parents were baptized in 2001, and they never got disfellowshipped when they kind of dropped out. They were just inactive. So then they just kind of came back to meetings without any real consequences, I guess, because that much time had passed. And yeah, we started going to meetings, and even still, my family was never like really into it. They were always kind of low effort witnesses. My mom hates service and she's very vocal about it. My dad doesn't have any interest in becoming an elder, or he was an MS and then he stepped down because he just didn't want the work. They're very low maintenance or low effort witnesses, but they just do it. They just kind of go along with it and go to meetings, but they believe it.
Okay, so then where did you come into the picture, and what was life like for you as a witness?
Um, so started going back to meetings at 7, and then by 9, I think I was already an unbaptized publisher. Um, so my parents weren't really going out in service a lot because, like I said, my mom hated it. And so my mom would have some like older women from the congregation pick me up on Saturdays and do like a 6 to 8 hour service day and like be driving out to prisons and stuff like that. Like just as like an 8, 9 year old girl. So yeah, I didn't get to like do sports or like cheerleading or anything that I wanted to do as a kid. It was very much like service on Saturdays, meeting on Sunday, and just not very much fun. I do feel like I missed out on a lot.
So you were going out in service and doing all the witness stuff at a very young age, and then at what age were you baptized?
I got baptized at 14.
And what was that like for you?
Um, well, I feel like when you become an unbaptized publisher at 9, it's like they already kind of start pushing you in that direction. So it's like you're already kind of signed up for it. You're already halfway there. So it's just like naturally this is the next step. You've already taken this step when you were 9. So now obviously you're ready for this. And I just remember there being a spirit in like the organization, this like cultural kids get baptized at a certain age. Once you're approaching like 16, 17, 18 and you're still not baptized, people aren't going to spend time with you. The elders are going to be looking at you, your parents are going to be looking at you. So I liked a boy and I wanted attention, and my parents were expecting me to do it, and I did it. And it was, oh my gosh, it was 10 years ago today.
Okay, so the fact that you liked a boy, obviously you had to be baptized in order for you to pursue anything like that. So
Right.
you got baptized at 14, and your sister was 7 years younger than you. She was still, so now at this point, your whole family is going to the meetings again.
Yeah, yeah, still very low effort witnesses, but everybody's going full force as much as they've always done.
Okay, so what happened between then and now? Walk us through
That's the fun part.
that.
So uh I think during COVID, like a lot of people, me and my husband, so not the guy that I liked when I was baptized, but I did marry a witness. We started dating at 17, got married at 19, and we are still married. So during the pandemic, me and my husband really started drifting away like a lot of people, laying down, kind of half sleeping during the meeting. It was so easy. You didn't have to go out in service, just doing letter writing. And I think just getting that break from it, you had more time to think because you're at home and like life kind of slowed down for a bit. So that was definitely like the first part that started pulling us away from it. And then when we went back to meetings, it was so exciting at first. And then it was like, oh, okay, they require a lot from us. This is a lot more effort than we've been putting in for the last couple of years. And then we had the convention in 2022, and that was like where Let called babies enemies of God, and that girl threw away her ripped jeans, and it was like really misogynistic. And me and my husband just kept looking at each other because we were still watching it at home, I think. But me and my husband just kept looking at each other like, what? What did they just say? And then going to the meetings, it slowly started wearing on us. And one night we came home from a midweek meeting, and just both of us started crying, and it was like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. This doesn't feel right. And for the first time, we like said a big prayer together, just like to whomever, to whom, not to Jehovah, but to whoever may hear it. We feel like we're not doing the right thing. Like, what should we do? And then um something had also happened around that time where some salespeople had come to our house selling us, trying to sell us solar panels. And like we invited them in, and then as soon as they left, we Googled what their business was and like read reviews. And so that kind of started getting me thinking. And then one day I went for it and I Googled it. And it was like the scariest thing I've ever done. And even though meetings had resumed, we were on Zoom again because the AC in our hall had broken and we were in Florida. So that was like a no go. So we were back on Zoom. Um, and I did it during the meeting. My husband was asleep. And I was on the Zoom meeting, and I was just like, all right, I can't take it anymore. None of this is sounding right all of a sudden. And then I found JW Facts and I read it during the Watchtower study and woke my husband up at the end of the meeting. And I was like, I gotta show you some stuff. Like it was immediately. I read all the articles on there, and it was just I was sold like that it wasn't true. And obviously there was a lot more deconstructing to go from there. But I showed my husband, and he was like, "Oh, okay, it's not true." I mean, just that website alone was like enough. But then I start going down the rabbit hole. Read Crisis of Conscience, started watching YouTube, your videos, lots of XJW content creators. And at first it's like, you're kind of tiptoeing around it. And then it was just like I was listening to it at the gym. I was listening to it when I was going to sleep. I was just like, I still had all this fear of like, okay, Armageddon, like, okay, what about this? What about that? And witnesses have like a packaged answer for everything. And once you like crack down those packaged answers, it's so easy. It's just like a house of cards. Everything falls apart. So then we knew we had to make a decision. So I was a hairstylist and I owned a hair salon, and I did people's like witnesses hair in probably 3 to 4 different circuits. I had a ton of witness clients, and non-witness clients, but at least like 50% witnesses. And that was going to be really difficult to continue doing that. And like, okay, have they gotten the memo that I've left? Are they going to cancel their appointments? So it was just like this panic of like, okay, my career is not going to work out if I leave. Um, my family's probably not going to like this. I could see that they are the type to shun me, even though they're not really serious about a lot of other stuff. Um, so me and my husband had just spent the last 2 years. We spent like a whole 16 months building a house. We had signed a contract in 2020, and like worked really hard to get there. I was 21, I think, when we signed for it, and he was 22, and we worked really hard for it, built this house, and then we lived in it for probably just the amount of time it took to build it, and then woke up and we were like, okay, we gotta sell our house. And we kind of always wanted to get out of Florida eventually too, so it wasn't like the worst thing ever. And our house had gone up in value a lot, so we put it on the market, and told my family that we were just moving to Virginia. Just because we don't like the weather, and because our house had gone up so much in value, it would be like a really good step for us to get the money from selling the house and buy a cheaper house in Virginia. Sorry, that's my cat. But oh, sorry, where was I? He got me so distracted.
You,
Oh yeah.
yeah. I,
So I tell my parents that I'm leaving, and they're obviously like, "Oh, why so soon?" Because it was maybe October, September, maybe, when I told them, and I was like, "I'm gonna tell clients no more hair like at the end of the year. So I'm gonna like put my house on the market and try to move at the end of the year, like in January." And my mom was like in 3 months, 4 months, and I was like, yeah, yep. And so everybody was a little caught off guard, but we kept going to meetings, and so we were like living the PMO life for a while, and that was so hard. We went to an assembly like a week before we moved. It was miserable. Once you know that it's not real and you have to go to meetings, and half the time we would go and my family wouldn't be there because they just miss a couple meetings a month. They always do. They're like, yeah, we don't have to go. So we would go and my family wouldn't be there. And then my family would go, and when we weren't there, they'd be like, "Oh, where are you?" So there was a time that my dad called me and he was like, "Hey, I'm kind of worried about your spirituality. Like I haven't really seen you at meetings much. I just want to like touch base." And I kind of played like the Uno reverse card on him. I was like, "I haven't seen you much at the meetings either." And he was like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right." So that got me a little bit more time, and it was really hard. Like our friends had like a going away thing for us, and there was a congregation picnic right before, and just knowing that it was going to be the last time we probably saw all those people, not knowing who would shun us, who wouldn't, but just kind of preparing for the worst. And it was just that was probably the worst part, honestly. Was like hugging those people and like trying to avoid like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have you up," and they're like asking when they can come up and stay with us and trying to make plans. It's like, "Oh yeah, we'll talk about it soon," and just feeling like such a jerk. But also, you know I you're in a position where you don't owe the witnesses anything. As much as these people are your friends and you love them, they don't give you any dignified way to leave. So we pack up our stuff and moved to Virginia. Our house sold really quick. We bought a house really quick. Everything with that just worked out really well. Moved to a place where we didn't really know anybody. We knew a couple people that had also just moved here, so they didn't really know anybody. And just started trying to figure out how to tell them. So we left on good terms with everybody. And then I was seeing an XJW therapist, like she herself is an XJW. And that was really, really helpful in like trying to figure out how to tell my parents and my friends. Um, so we moved here at the end of January, around this time last year. And on March 16th, I sent my letters out. So I didn't disassociate or anything. I just kind of avoided the elders. I put up a no trespassing sign, and it's like garlic to a vampire. They can't do anything about it. So I just avoided them. They tried to stop by. The elders in my congregation had gotten our address because they like cornered us in the Kingdom Hall. And I was like, you can't give a Jehovah's Witness a fake address. This is like what they do. They're gonna know. They look at property records. So we come up here, and I sent the letters out. And I check the mailbox every day, and I check my phone every day, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. And my parents still have not said a word to me. My best friend still has not said a word to me. My brother originally told me he wouldn't shun me when he first read it. He was like, this is really a lot to process. But one of the first things he said, he texted me, he was like, I'm not going to shun you. And then a couple months ago, like fast forward to a couple months ago, there was like a Watchtower article that I had seen a little bit about in some like XJW content that was like really upsetting for, not talking to family that has left. Like you don't need those people. And immediately after that Watchtower, my brother stopped responding to my texts. So I would like text him here and there, just like, have a good weekend. I love you. And he would text me back, send him like old memories that came up, pictures, whatever. And he stopped responding. So I went back up to the message where he had said he wasn't going to shun me, and I liked it. And then he wrote me this big paragraph, and he was like, I have to do it. I can't. I have to choose between you and Jehovah. And so originally he wasn't going to shun me. Now he's shunning me. My grandma told me she can't have anything to do with me until I'm no longer an apostate. So she's the one that threw that word out. My little sister won't respond to me. I try to message her on Instagram and still send her like memes and stuff when I see them, but none of them will respond to me. They won't answer my texts, phone calls. So I left on good terms with everybody. Then I wrote those letters, and everything completely changed.
It's very difficult, and it's still quite fresh for you to have your siblings and your family shun you. And the fact that you've moved to a completely new place with your husband, it's great that you guys woke up together and you have at least each other for that support. And you guys in the same mental space, would you say, as far as your healing?
Yeah, I would say that my husband probably deconstructed a little bit before I did, even before I went on the website. I think in 2020, my husband has always been more scientific, and he really, that time away from the meetings, like really helped him to not really believe in God as much. And so he kind of went in that direction first, whereas for me, I had to start with the witness stuff and then go from there. So it was definitely hard, and it's been hard, like leaving together. We talk a lot, and like we're best friends, but and that's how we kind of ended up leaving together, is just like having those conversations and talking about it. And it's hard. You're like figuring out who you are, and they're figuring out who they are, and you're like trying not to go in opposite directions, and you're trying to figure out like what do I actually believe? Like, what do I actually feel about this? Like little things like, oh, I think I don't like violent movies still. And he's like, oh, maybe okay with them. Little things that we always had to agree and have the same ideas about those kind of things. And now we don't have to. So we've done couples therapy, we do individuals therapy. As much therapy as possible has been like the biggest thing for us. But yeah, it was really difficult, but I was glad to not be completely alone. And where we live, in Virginia, in Roanoke, has an amazing XJW group. So there's a lot of support out here. I've met some really, really good friends, and just continuing to try to meet people and become a real person a little bit. Figure out the world. Me and my husband both work from home, and we were both homeschooled. So I'd say we're still pretty under socialized. But we have each other. We spend a lot of time together, and we're trying to build our social circle and make our own little family.
I love the fact that you really emphasize therapy. I think it's so underrated in the Jehovah's Witness community because we weren't really allowed to go to therapy as witnesses, and now we have this
Right.
freedom to do it. And there's so much bad therapists out there, but when you find a right therapist, counselor, coach, it's a life-changing experience.
Yeah,
Another question I have for you is, so I know you were a hairdresser back home. So you said you work from home now. So you switched careers?
I did. That's another big change. I switched my religion, where I live, everything. So I switched careers. Why not? So yeah, I do bookkeeping now. So I went and got an accounting degree. I just graduated last month, got my associates, and yeah, I work from home online for my old accountant back in Florida, doing bookkeeping work for him.
Wow, that's a lot of grown-up stuff for you 24 years old?
Uh-huh, yeah.
It's a lot of grown-up stuff for a 24-year-old. You've
I
lived
know. I feel like I've aged 10 years.
quite a life. Built a
Yeah.
house, sold the house, moved to another state with your husband, changed careers already, have family that disowned you. And I know you said your parents were kind of on and off with the religion. So where are they now when it comes to the religion, and what's their stance on that?
Oh man, they've it's so obnoxious. They were never like, I mean, they'd post convention pictures here and then, but since I've left, they're laying it on really thick. My I think that they're leaning into it. Unfortunately, I think the next assembly after I had left, my sister got baptized. So even though I put in my letter to them that I know that I got baptized, but I was 14 and I don't feel like I was old enough or informed enough to make that decision. And as an adult now, my mind has changed. And the fact that they go and just immediately baptize my 16-year-old sister, like, you haven't learned your lesson, obviously. Why are we still baptizing children? Like, this hasn't shown you anything. And now they both unfriended me on Facebook, which is ridiculous. And but sometimes, like, through relatives and stuff like that, I see their pictures, and they're constantly posting like convention pictures and big pictures of them at meetings, and like just really trying to like front as more spiritual people.
Mm.
But it's frustrating because my family also, like, my dad owns a business and they have a lot of non-witness connections, and none of those people know that I'm being shunned. My parents are just kind of like avoiding it. Somebody asked my dad about me, and the answer was she's no longer with us. So I don't know if he's like telling people I'm actually dead. Um, but yeah, they're just trying to look more spiritual. I think they're leaning into it since I've left.
That makes sense, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you have your husband and the ex-Jehovah's Witness community in Virginia. That's really helpful for you, and all the other Facebook groups and all the other online resources as well. Thank
yeah.
you so much, Autumn, for sharing your story. Is there anything that you'd like to add, whether it's a part of your story or anything you'd like to add to maybe a viewer that's watching?
Um, if you wake up, it's the worst thing, it's the best thing. It's terrifying, it's exciting. There's relief and there's so much anxiety, but you can do it. You can leave. It's really hard and it's not going to be easy. And you kind of have to brace for the worst, and it might be the worst and it might be better. I have one friend that still talks to me like nothing happened. There might be some good things that happen, but ultimately you can do it. You can leave. Um, and I also am happy to help in any way that I can. I do connect with those online groups, and I have a basement here that I just had a PMO staying in it this past weekend. Happy to let anybody stay who needs a place to stay for a little bit.
It's beautiful. Again, I feel like you're so grown up for a 24-year-old.
Ah, I'm tired.
I can only imagine. Thank you so much, Autumn, for coming on my channel and sharing your story. Very, very appreciated.
Oh, thank you for having me.